Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Recently on my channel I have been running a series of videos on Stormstrike, the Warhammer Age of Sigmar starter set. But all good things must come to an end, and so apparently must all mediocre things, because this is my last video talking specifically about the Stormstrike starter set. Say that 10 times quickly. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, where you been? It's probably a good idea before I start wittering on about this for you to check those out. At least the unboxing and things like that, because I talk about how this sort of introduces people to the game. I've posted a series of battle reports where I played through the learning tutorials with my daughter, and that was great fun. But here I'm just going to sum up. Really, this is kind of. It's not really a review. It's certainly not a review of. Certainly not a review. Apparently, it's certainly not a review of the Age of Sigmar mechanisms, the entire game structure. It's just a review of this starter set, really. Just thinking back from what I've gone through in terms of building it and playing the tutorials, just to see whether really it is a good introduction to this particular gaming system, and it kind of is and it kind of isn't. Mainly I fall on the side of things that it is. It's inexpensive. I paid full price in a bricks and mortar store and I paid £25, but you can get this for about 20 quid online, and you get a goodly amount of miniatures. You get, like I say, if you see my other videos, you already know this, but you get 3 Secretors, you get 3 Castigators, you get 1 Gryph-hound, you get 4 Glaive Wraith Stalkers and 4 Miremorn Banshees. The good thing about this is that if you then go on and buy the full Soul Wars box set, which I have, and yes, I have done video footage on that as well, but you can use all of this. All of this stuff is, while it's not unique, you can go into Games Workshop store and buy all of these miniatures. They are distinct from the miniatures that you get in Soul Wars. So if you bought this box and then you bought Soul Wars, none of these miniatures are duplicated in that larger set. So that's pretty handy, because you know, Miremorns aren't in the Soul Wars box at all, so it's really cool to have that unit. And you get some extra guys here that you can add into the Glaive Wraiths that come in the Soul Wars box, and particularly this guy here. I don't know if you can see that, but that guy is a drummer. There are no drummer miniatures in the Soul Wars box, so, and at the moment, to the best of my knowledge, this set of 4 Glaive Wraiths, which is available as a separate set of easy build miniatures, that's the only way to get a Glaive Wraith drummer. So that's pretty cool as well. And yeah, you get some extra guys that you can add into your units of Castigators and Secretors. You can sort of mix them in for extra variation in the poses, which is nice. And you get a little doggy, which there is no doggy in the Soul Wars box, and you know, everybody should have a doggy. I've actually got, between this set, Silver Tower and Shadows over Hammerhall, I have 3 Gryph-hounds, which so I can have a little unit of them running around, barking, screeching, screechy barking, who knows. So yeah, it's a goodly amount of miniatures. It's and then you also get this hefty 80-page book. You get the full core rules, which is a 16-page booklet. You get war scrolls for these 5 units, but you also get war scrolls for 4 additional units, 2 heroes and 2 other units, which are actually all miniatures that are available as easy build kits. So that's pretty cool, because they've basically given you the cards for what will possibly be your next purchases down the line, because we will get to that in a moment. So that's quite nice that they gave you those cards. They didn't need to, but they're there so that if you do buy those miniatures, you have nice cards for them, which is a nice little addition. The box becomes a piece of terrain, and there's a paper map, which isn't going to do you any good once you get beyond this starter set. The paper mat is it's just for the sort of learning tutorial missions that come with this set. But that cardboard box, which turns into a big crypt, that's going to be handy for a little while. It's going to be handy until you've got a good amount of terrain, and so even once you've bought a few bits and bobs, you're probably still going to be chucking that on the table just because it's a cheap and convenient way to get some height and elevation, which is the same thing. Yeah, so it's for 25 quid or 20-ish quid. It's certainly a lot of stuff. It's comparable to the starter set for Warhammer 40k, which had a very, very similar structure. It had 4 units, 2 Ultramarine units, 2 Death Guard units. I'm talking about First Strike here, which even has a very similar name, Storm Strike, First Strike. And yeah, it had the box that was a piece of terrain. But overall, I would say that the First Strike box set for 40k was a slightly better introduction than this one. And that's because Age of Sigmar, to me, it feels very much about the heroes. Heroes are important in 40k. You can have some heroes that are just awesome badasses, which are going to rip up armies. But in Age of Sigmar, heroes really do feel a little bit like they're the linchpin of everything you're doing. And there's a command point system that heroes have special abilities that you can pay command points to trigger to give you additional benefits. And obviously there are no heroes in this box. So while there are no heroes in the 40k starter set either, it feels like more of an omission here. And particularly so because once you've played 3 of the tutorials in this book, the 4th tutorial is called Hallowed Ground, and it actually tells you down here, one player is the Stormcast Eternals player who controls the entire Stormcast Eternals army, a unit of 3 Secretors, a unit of 3 Castigators, and the Gryph-hound. The army may include the mighty Astria Solbright. The other player is a Nighthaunt player who controls the entire Nighthaunt army, a unit of 4 Glavewraith Stalkers and a unit of 4 Marmon Banshees. The army may include the fearsome Reikenor the Grimhailer. Now, Astria Solbright and Reikenor the Grimhailer are 2 hero level characters which are separate purchases. The cards for the units are in this box set, but the miniatures are a separate purchase. Now, you can obviously proxy them. You've got all the rules to use them because, like I say, Games Workshop were good enough to include those cards, but you don't have those miniatures in this box. So the 4th tutorial, the final tutorial in this set, is pretty much asking you to use miniatures that are not in the box. First Strike didn't do that. All of the tutorials in First Strike, they guided you through the rules and just got you going, got you playing. And it completely omitted the psychic phase, which was because there were no psychers in the box set. And it kept it sort of so that it was confined to the box. The box did what the box did, and then you had your next steps to go on to the next thing. Here it feels like those next steps kind of get integrated into this starter set, and this starter set sort of stumbles over those next steps a little bit, and it all gets a little bit muddled together here. Other than that, it's... And I don't want to big that up to be a massive problem with this starter set. It's not a massive problem. It's something to be aware of. It's something to be aware of. You can play Hallowed Ground without the heroes. That's perfectly acceptable. But the whole point of this scenario is to introduce those heroes and what heroes can add to the game. So you are missing out on a certain part of what this scenario is trying to show you if you don't have those heroes. But it's not a major problem. Like I say, you can proxy them. They've done the good thing and they've given you the cards. If you've got, by the time you've bought this, if you go and buy Soul Wars, you get heroes in Soul Wars. They're not the same heroes, interestingly, but they are heroes that you can use in place of the heroes they suggest. So there are ways around it, and it's not a massive issue. It's not a game breaker, and it's not something to sort of gnash your teeth and grit your, gnash your hands and grit your face. It's none of that. It's just something to be aware of. Other than that, it's a really nice introduction to the system. If we go back, there's, it gives you enough fluff to get you going, to get you started. It talks about Stormcast and Night Haunts and things, and it's got a really nice section on painting, going right from the start, right from the different techniques that you can use, which is good, and it gives you basic colour schemes. And this is something to note. A lot of people look at Games Workshop stuff and go, I'm never going to be able to paint like that. I just don't have the skill. I don't even want to even think about getting into this hobby. Games Workshop do not expect you to paint to the standard of the miniatures that you see in White Dwarf magazine. I've said this a gajillion times before, and I will continue to say it. And Games Workshop don't expect it. And you can see here, they have given you painting guides to get decent tabletop level miniatures in 4 steps using basically 3 colours. That's really good for people that are brand new to the hobby. That's the kind of painting guide you want. That's when I started this hobby, I painted a lot of skeletons because super easy to paint. But I would have loved to have guides like this that are just like, buy 3 pots of paint and crack on. And it's quite handy, and it does it for the 4 units. And it then breaks out into extra steps. And then if you want to go to the next level and add shading and more detail, you can do that. And a miniature is only finished when you decide it's finished. You can paint it to a certain degree, you can put it on the table, you can play with it for months, and then you can go, now I feel like finishing it, and then you can go back and you can add more detail. So that's what you can do. You can paint them basically, you can get them painted and played. If you decide you love the game and want to take those models to the next level, you can come back and look at these next sections and add those additional details. Or by then you may have learned some little tricks and tips of your own. But yeah, you're never done with a miniature until you decide you're done with a miniature. There's nothing stopping you going back and adding in more later on. And that's kind of what they've done here. They've kind of given you a step 1 and a step 2, which is cool. And then you get into the start playing section, and this is good. It's a really good way to get you started, and it's a good way to teach you the core rules. The core rules are nice and simple. These battle plans are a really good introduction to those rules. You get they're not very even, and they're not hugely fun. I mean, there's only so much fun you can have with one Sequitur getting charged by 4 Glaive Wraiths, and similarly, there's not a lot of fun to be had from one Castigator being charged by a group of Marmorns, and then the third scenario, again, you've got 3 Castigators on a crypt being swamped by lots of units. I actually had fun playing these scenarios with my daughter, but they are definitely learning scenarios. They don't give you a full game experience, let's say that. The 4th scenario is the one that introduces the concept of purchasing heroes, and that is a more of a full game experience. You get all of your units on the table, and you're fighting for objectives, and so that's a good fun little battle plan. But yeah, so the 4th scenario actually includes sort of rules, talks about wizards and arcane bolts and things like that. But obviously, if you haven't got any of those hero characters, then you don't have any wizards, and so you don't have command abilities, you don't have wizards, so you don't have spells. A lot of this 4th scenario is geared around stuff that you do not have in the box. This next steps page just talks about where to go next, and it's basically just a list of all the stuff you can buy. I would still be a little bit like, well, don't really know if I didn't have Soul Wars. And I would say that if you buy this box set and you enjoy Stormstrike, and you really want to get into Age of Sigmar, I would buy Soul Wars. It's got the full core rules in it. It's got 2 good armies with good heroes and a good mix of units. More than enough to be playing with for quite some time before you start needing to buy more stuff, especially once you've integrated your extra units and miniatures from Stormstrike. So that's where I would go. Overall, I think this is a good introduction. I think it's possibly the best introduction you could do for Age of Sigmar, because Age of Sigmar, despite being a simple game in terms of the rules, there is a lot to learn. You need to really know a lot about your units and their special abilities and how you build your army, and that there is a lot more to the game than the core rules. Few pages of rules would have you believe, but this is a really good way to find out more, and at the very least you're going to sort of see the miniatures, the quality of the miniatures. You're going to see the core rules and what they offer, and you're going to get an idea of whether you do want to go and invest in a full box set like Soul Wars. And that's pretty much all I have to say on that. I've had fun with Stormstrike. It is still, at the end of the day, a starter set. It is not the full game experience. There are other purchases that you will need to make if you want to have that full game experience. But then the clue is in the title. It's a starter set. And that's it from me. Thank you for listening, everybody. Bye bye.